Here is 10 ways you can make money off Pokemon cards in 2025. Hasn't it become a massive, massive trend? That is turning shiny bits of cardboard that we all know and love into money. Wow, it's just accelerated like nothing else lately, it seems. Hey, I'm Michael /PokeOz. If you're new to the channel, we talk all things Pokemon card investing, and if you're tuning back in, I really, really appreciate it. It means a lot. Today's video sponsor is of course, the Collector app. I'll talk about that halfway through, but let's just jump straight into number one. This is the first way you can make money off Pokemon cards in 2025, and that is holding sealed product. Now look, it sounds a bit mundane, it sounds a little bit boring, but it's not. It can actually be really, really exciting. Holding sealed, like behind me, and look, I've got a heap more in the wardrobe and hiding in other places, but holding sealed product can be an easy and simple way to make money off Pokemon cards. You don't need to do anything, and more than that, you can create an awesome collection space, maybe in a spare room, maybe on just a shelf in your bedroom if that's going to keep your wife happy, or your husband if you're a female viewer tuning in, one of the 3.2% that watches. Thanks heaps for tuning in. Now I've lost my train of thought. So you can make an awesome display piece with all your sealed collection. But getting into the nuts and bolts as to why holding sealed actually makes you money, it's very, very simple, isn't it? You know, you buy low and you sell high. It's as simple as that. It's like buying property. It's like buying a property that you don't intend to, lease out or have tenants in, but just buy it, sit on it, and sell later for more money. And that's all you can do with sealed Pokemon. When it comes to sealed Pokemon, you're not going to realize any gains until you actually sell. And keep in mind, there are going to be selling fees attached to that. So basically what I'm getting at is if you bought some Fusion Strike for argument's sake, and that seems to be the flavor of the month at the moment, but if you bought some Fusion Strike, say 3 years ago for $95 US, and you can now sell it for $720 US after fees and taxes. Maybe you get $640 US, and you've pocketed $550 US over the course of the last 3 years. Then that is one easy way to make money when it comes to Pokemon cards. So the first one is holding sealed product and selling it later. Now keep in mind, you'll only make your money when you do sell it. You need to sell it for a profit. There will be fees involved, and there's no dividends for holding it. You're sitting on it. But the great thing is you can come in, set up an awesome display. It's as easy as that. Number two, and that is holding singles/slabs. That is another way you can make money. If you look at master sets across time when it comes to Pokemon card sets, they really do follow an extremely, extremely similar trend. And it goes like this, right? A set first comes out, in the first week or two, or even the first month, we see singles at an all-time high because there's so much hype around it. There's also not much supply in the market because not heaps has been opened. Maybe the lag of getting from distribution to stores is a bit slow, and more and more people need to open them for more supply to get on the market of the top chase cards and hits in a set. And then as more supply gets open and maybe a reprint happens over the next 3 months or 6 months or 9 months, we see the total set value for sets starting to decline a little bit. We see, and this isn't always the case, sometimes some hits can go up in price, but generally speaking, they start to go down in price, total set value main chase cards, until they reach a little bit of an equilibrium. And then maybe they'll jump back up because there's some hype around that set, or maybe there's word that there's not going to be a reprint and they go back up. And then all of a sudden, maybe there is a reprint and they go back down. So they generally follow this sort of worm until they sort of get out of the rotation period, and maybe they become 4 or 5 years old. And then all of a sudden they start taking some big upticks again. And we've seen that through a lot of Sword and Shield cards. And we've also seen that through a lot of Sun and Moon cards they're at that age where they're starting to appreciate in value a little bit more. So what I'm getting at is, don't buy right at the start. Maybe if you buy when you feel they're at their low, and look, that's so hard to time. It's so hard to know when a single's at its low. It could keep going lower. It could go. It's a roller coaster, singles. I've said that a million times on this channel. You just don't know. But if you happen to buy at its low point and you sell at its high point, it's the same thing as if you're holding sealed product. You're only going to realize those profits or those gains from the Pokemon cards when you're selling it for a profit and making that money. And same thing, of course, there's going to be fees and postage costs attached to it. So just keep that in mind. The third way to make money from Pokemon cards is grading them. The big grading play. And look, this is quite prevalent throughout some of the early Scarlet and Violet era sets, and I'll tell you exactly why. The grading play all comes down to how easy it is to grade a card a Gem Mint 10. If it's incredibly difficult to grade a card a Gem Mint 10, you get a higher multiplier effect from raw price to PSA 10 price, or BGS 10 price, or CGC 10 price. And the case in point would be Magikarp from Paldea Evolved. Someone will comment down below how I pronounce Paldea Evolved. Actually, let's set a challenge. No one comment it. No one. If I don't see it, I'll be happy. Anyway, the Magikarp from Paldea Evolved, that's the best case in point because I think it's just over $200 raw. It's really hard to gem mint that card at 10. Why? Because the print quality is really bad. It quite often gets print lines on it. A lot of illustration cards are pretty difficult to gem mint to 10. And because of that, it has like a 22% gem mint 10 with PSA 10 conversion rate. Because of that, its PSA 10 price is massive. So that's one play that people can do. They might buy up a heap of copies of illustration rares. And there's other examples. You know, there's some examples from Obsidian Flames, like, you know, cards like the Scizor or I think, who else in there? Ninetales, is it? Yeah, those sort of cards that are maybe relatively cheap raw, but when they gem into 10 because it's so hard, they could be 10, 12, 13, 15 times the value of what they are raw. So if you do that, people buy 50 copies of a Ninetale, send 50 off to get graded, and 20 or 18 or however many come back a 10 and the rest come back a 9 and a couple come back an 8. Well, there you go. That's a really good fun play to make money off grading Pokemon cards. Number 4, and this one might sound like a bit of a no-brainer, but that is buying collections and then reselling them. When it comes to selling collections, one thing I've found is, generally speaking, when someone wants to sell their collection, it's sort of because they need the money. And look, I'm not saying that in a rude way, but generally it is. That's what I've found. You sell your collection not because you want to. Like if you've got $10 million in the bank and 14 properties, you're not going to sell your prized Pokemon card collection. That's part of you. That's something you've collected and made along the way as part of your journey from life. But if you're looking to buy a new property, maybe something massive has come up, maybe you need to move country and start a new job somewhere else because awesome career opportunities come up, and you just need to sell your collection, piecing it out and selling it takes massive amounts of time. It really does. If you've got binders full of incredibly expensive Wizards of the Coast holos, plus modern slabs, plus sealed collections, selling it as a whole really does make it a lot easier. But keep in mind, if you're selling it as a whole, most people that are buying whole collections, they're not going to buy it 100% of value. They might add it all up and they'll go, look, I'll give you 75 or 80% of market price. So if you've got a $60,000 Pokemon card collection, someone might offer you $45,000 for that collection to buy it all up in one swoop. Why? Well, it makes it easier for you, the seller, but then it gives the buyer, who's going to take time, who's going to use up their time to resell it, gives them the opportunity to make some profit off it. So that's another way you can make money off Pokemon cards. Number 5 on the list, and look, I certainly didn't like this one. It happened very predominantly at the start of the year. I said it to a lot of people and I got some backlash. Not so bad. Of course, people always agree, but there's always people that disagree as well. And I was talking about buyouts / market manipulation. There was coordinated buyouts of particular cards, and I said on countless videos, there's just no way those cards are worth that amount of money. They just can't be, based on their rarity, based on their pull rates, based on their gem mint rate, based on the artwork, the Pokemon. They don't deserve to be at that price. And that might sound a bit harsh, but when you look back and look at it objectively, it's not harsh, it's just reality. Like, unfortunately, Drowsy from S&V Base did never deserve to be $100 card raw. It never deserved to be whatever it got up to, like $1,200 as a PSA 10. It just didn't deserve to be there at that point in time. And the amount of daily TCG sales and eBay sales for particular cards just really screamed out buyout. So what happens there, and that's one way to make money, of course one that I don't advocate, is that you hope that you can hop on this gravy train, or maybe start the gravy train, start the ball rolling where you buy that single, buy it out, everyone goes, oh geez, that's going up in price, I better buy more, and other people from all around the world or all around the United States, wherever it might be, buy out more copies of that card and artificially pump up the price of it, and then you dump your supply back on the market at a higher price. So the Drowsy from S&V Base, let's say you did a massive buyout of 50 cards at $20 and it started this snowball effect where it pushed Drowsy up to $80, and then you resell those cards for $80. Well, of course you're making profit off them. Not the most ethical way, in my opinion, to do business, but each to their own. It is one way that someone might make money. And of course, it's a risk, though. There is a risk attached to that. It might be one way someone can make money off Pokemon cards. Right, I said at the halfway point, we talk about today's video sponsor is, of course, the Collector app. There are some awesome new features on the Collector app. I'll leave the link in the description to download it. You can put in all your sealed and all your singles collection. One thing I did want to mention now, though, is you can click on Set Analytics. This is so good. I've been wanting this on the Collector app for so long. I'm glad Adam and the guys there have really listened and taken this on. You can now check out total set value of Pokemon card sets. How good? How good is that? You can look at the top market movers, what people are spending their money on, what cards are most popular from a set. This is going to give you so much data, and I also urge everyone to sign up as a pro user because there's some phenomenal giveaways on the Collector app. Right, moving on to number 6, the rise of rip and ship. Look, this has been around for a while, of course, but it just seems to be getting more and more prevalent. And that is, of course, having your channel on some sort of medium, whether it's is it Whatnot, whether it's YouTube, whatever the streaming service might be. You're essentially buying supply of sealed Pokemon card packs. You're getting people to buy in, whether it's $6 a pack, $9 a pack, $25 a pack for Evolving Skies, $13 a pack for Fusion Strike, whatever it might be. You're getting people to buy in, so you're making profit off people buying in, and then you're giving out the hits that people get from those. So it's as simple as that. Like if you're doing a rip and ship in an evening for 3 hours and you're opening, I'm just plucking numbers out of the air, if you're opening 600 Pokemon card packs and you've purchased those $600 on average per pack, $1.50 less than what you paid for it, well, you're going to be making $900 of profit there. Of course, postage and everything comes into play, but there's people in a night that can make really good money off rip and shipping, and that's why it's become so popular. How fun, just opening Pokemon cards to make money. That's awesome, isn't it? Now, coupled in with rip and ship, I was just going to mention online stores. You can, of course, open up an online store, try and get yourself distribution. Again, there's more and more online stores popping up, more and more people wanting distribution of Pokemon cards, which is, of course, making the supply of them so much harder. I was talking to my local LGS about Destined Rivals. He asked for 480 booster boxes and got 42. Got about 9% of what he asked for. Crazy. Number 7 on the list, of course, is the brick and mortar, and that leads in from what I was saying. All card conventions, like just selling in person is a way to make money. Everywhere, generally, most major cities will have some sort of card convention, where you can go along, maybe hire yourself a stall, sell out your bulk, sell out some of your hits you don't want, sell out some of your sealed product. What a fun way to meet new people, meet like-minded people in the community, and sell some cards and make some money along the way. Coupled in with that, of course, is brick and mortar. There's more people having a crack at opening card stores and selling. There's lots of things pumping at the moment. Disney Lorcana seems to be going really well. Of course, Pokemon cards are going to the absolute moon. One Piece is a popular TCG. Magic the Gathering just seems to keep going and going. So there's plenty of cards that you can sell from a brick and mortar. Now, the last 3 I wanted to talk to you about, 8, 9, and 10, as we round out 10 ways to make money from Pokemon cards in 2025. These are all online ways to make money. So they're not, I suppose, directly related to Pokemon cards in terms of you actually flipping a card yourself and making money off it, or a sealed product, but they are ways to make money off Pokemon cards. And of course, number 8 is YouTube, which is what I do essentially to a degree. YouTube is a fantastic way to get yourself out there, have a go. Like, I originally started YouTube as a way of, I suppose, maybe trying to improve my public speaking, getting off, sitting on the couch and doom scrolling through different apps and actually doing something creative with my time, which was YouTube, and coupled with the fact that I could talk about a hobby that I absolutely love and build my collection as I go and talk about investing and making money off Pokemon cards, there's a way you can make money just talking about Pokemon cards. And it is massive. The rise in YouTubers talking about Pokemon cards, whether it's opening packs, talking about investing, it's just growing and growing and growing. Number 9 is apps. Think about Collector. Collector app, Adam and the guys there, they started, it wasn't even that long ago. And the amount of daily users, daily downloads, total downloads from that app has just grown exponentially. It is a fantastic way. I haven't talked to him about how much, income is being made off that app, but it must be phenomenal, and hats off to the people that do that. Congratulations. It takes risk, it takes guts, it takes some talent in the IT space, which I certainly don't have, but that's another way that you could make money is with apps. And number 10 is Discords. There seems to be a massive rise in this as well. Discords where people are opening, offering sort of Pokemon card drops that if you sign up and pay a certain amount of money, we'll give you the latest news and latest drops and opportunities to buy Pokemon cards cheaper. There seems to be a bit of that out as well. And look, I don't know, it doesn't seem a bad way to do it, each their own. This growing sort of economy and space when it comes to Pokemon cards and all the different ways you can make money from it. We can't sit here and go, well, I do it this way, so you're doing it wrong, or I do it this way, so you're doing it wrong. We shouldn't point fingers and judge. It's just the way it is. We should be almost celebrating the fact that there's heaps of different ways, and the hobby is at an all-time high at the moment. There you go. There's 10 ways you can make money off Pokemon cards in 2025. I'm Michael. This is PokeOz. Catch everyone next time.